The Wonderful World of Darklords. Report 29. Scrooge and Marley. As I traveled from the bathhouse, the mists grew increasingly frigid, and I soon found myself in a blinding snowstorm. I knew that I must have ended up in the wrong domain, as my destination is known for its warm climate, and I stumbled through the nearest door in the hopes of gaining my bearings. The air inside may have been dry and free of snow, but it was certainly no warmer than the blizzard I had left behind me, with only a single piece of coal in the fire. The clerk, a reedy little bullywug, worked at his desk under a thin white blanket, occasionally pausing and attempting to warm his hands over his candle flame. The clerk, who introduced himself as Bob Cratchit, welcomed me with all the warmth and cheer that the room lacked, and asked if I was there to pay or dispute my debts with Mr. Scrooge, adding with a sympathetic air that if I wished to dispute them, then he had little hope of my chances. When I told him that the mists had deposited me there and that I had no idea of where I was, he told me that I was in the offices of Scrooge and Marley, one of the most successful businesses in Londinium. My surprise must have shown on my face, for I could not imagine anyone of means keeping such a dismal little cell, and Cratchit mumbled something about Mr. Scrooge not squandering his money on luxuries. I remarked that Mr. Marley must have been similarly inclined, and Cratchit informed me that Marley had been dead as a doornail for 7 years, but that Scrooge saw no point in paying a painter to remove his name from the sign. At that moment, a voice from the back room barked at Cratchit to get back to work. As the storm was dying away, I bid him farewell and made my way to an inn for the evening. As I unlocked the door to my room, the wood grain shifted before my eyes, forming a cold, shriveled face that glowed with a dim and dreary light. I recoiled in surprise, only to see the door return to its normal state. I assumed that the room was haunted and asked for another. Little did I know that it was not the room that was haunted. The moment I crossed the threshold of Scrooge and Marley, I had marked myself to be followed by spirits, with my past, present, and future tormenting my dreams. The Lord. I eventually learned that the ghost whose face appeared in my door was none other than the 7 years dead businessman, Jacob Marley. In the glimpses I got of Marley, he was a cruel-faced old man with a chain wrapped around his body, composed of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses wrought in steel. If he was anything like his partner in life, I suspect that he is now spending eternity bound to the only things he ever cared about. In addition to those glimpses of Marley himself, I could see faint outlines of his old office around him. The light on him, for instance, seemed to be cast by a single candle in a miserably small coal fire, and I felt some of the drafts that had blown about me in that poorly sealed office. Either Marley brings a piece of his former place of business with him wherever he goes, or his spirit never truly leaves it, instead casting itself into the minds of those who visit it through some sort of psychic projection. The sudden intense blizzard, so similar to closed borders in Arendelle or Vorostikov, makes me suspect the latter. He is trapped in a tiny domain, forming a mental connection with those who enter so his consciousness can follow them out. The Land. Although Marley's spirit is trapped in a dismal counting house, he was able to send some part of his mind out to my own, first by showing me that strange vision of his face, then by entering my dreams. My dreams began normally enough, scrubbing the tubs in Yubaba's bathhouse, eventually finding the dry, hard earth of Camp Green Lake at the bottom and realizing that I had to dig rather than scrub, when everything around me shifted. I found myself in a graveyard with Winifred Sanderson holding my brother on her broom and preparing to drain his life. Regrettably, this was not an unusual turn for my dreams to take. What was unusual was that I was not seeing it as a frightened child watching helplessly from below. I was my adult self, and I could see my younger self looking on in impotent terror. This was the first time I glimpsed Marley watching from one of the graves, his expression one of cold greed. Somehow the black flame candle was there as well, and it was whispering to me, mocking me for my weakness. In an ordinary dream, I would likely have been a passive observer, bodiless, unable to act, scarcely aware of myself. In this one, however, it was as though my present self had been sent back in time to watch the scene unfold. The only bit of dream logic that remained in the scene, which I did not recognize until much later, was that I found nothing unusual in these occasional sightings of Marley and the candle. I like to believe that under normal circumstances I would have confronted Marley's spirit as the obvious source of my troubles, but in the dream his presence was as unremarkable as that of the grass and the sky. I tried to shout for my brother to pull Winifred to the ground as he had in reality, sure that the dream would end in some horrific way, as my nightmares often do. But the voice from the black flame candle snickered at my fear. "These are but shadows of the things that have been," it jeered. "They have no consciousness of you." I would not be helpless again. Even with the candle's assurance that this was a dream, a shadow, I assumed my form of dread and unleashed an eldritch blast on the witch who had plagued my nightmares ever since that fateful night so many years ago. It crackled from my hands, resembling nothing so much as green lightning. To my surprise, she tumbled from her broom immediately, but my elation turned to horror when I saw that I had hit my brother as well. My past self ran to his side, sobbing, but he was dead. This, I would learn, was the true domain in which Marley wielded his influence, visiting his victims with 3 dreams, to an end I would only discover later. Dread possibilities. After tormenting me with visions of my past, the dreams shifted to what seemed to be the present, or near enough to it. I saw my brother, an adult now, his head in his hands, his wife touching his shoulder. "She's a witch now, Allison," he said. "What if, when I saved her..." I did not notice until I thought back later that something about him shifted at that moment, his eyes taking on the same dreary glow as Marley's. "What if I just saved another witch?" he spat. "When she comes back, she might be as much of a danger to the children of Salem as the Sanderson sisters ever were. I don't even know if Poppy is safe around her." I was stunned, and even knowing what the candle had said about these being mere shadows, I ran to his side and begged him to look at me, to know that I would never harm his daughter or any other child. As Allison agreed that I had become the thing I hated, I heard a faint yowling sound behind me. I turned and saw the blurred form of a black cat. Its mouth was moving in what looked like human speech, but I could not make out what it was saying. I ran toward him, and as I did, the scene around me shifted to the deck of the Calico Jack, the ship that my erstwhile friend Mary Reed had inherited when I allowed Davy Jones to claim her captain and lover, Anne Bonny. Reed was cursing my name for a treacherous and conniving witch, but I ignored her, for the cat who had no business being on the deck of a pirate ship, was still there, shouting words I could not hear. I knelt down beside him and tried to touch his fur, but my hands passed through him as though he were made of smoke. A third time the scene changed, and this time the cat had vanished. I stood in the Sanderson house, and I braced myself, certain that the dream would torment me with past visions of the witches holding me captive. But instead, I saw 3 old women hunched over a cauldron, older than the Sandersons had appeared when I knew them. When I peered beyond the white hair and age spots, I could see that one of them looked like a haggard, decades-older version of my niece. The second, I had only met my niece's sweetheart a few times, but this woman looked like her as a wizened old crone. The third, stirring the cauldron, was me. "One final thing, and all is done," my older self was saying as she consulted her book of shadows, the same book of shadows that I now carried with me. "Add a piece of thine own tongue." I could hear nothing more that they said over my own screaming. I held out my hands as if to ward the vision away, and something burst from them. A color that was not a color, a sound that was not a sound. The color took the form of a black cat, who immediately became more solid. He launched himself toward the coven with a hiss that was clearly audible to me now, and as he clawed at them, the scene changed. I saw my older self, not as old as in the previous scene, but certainly a version of me from the future, using her eldritch blast to protect a child from a snarling werewolf. The cat turned to me, and this time when he spoke I could hear him. "It's all right to be worried, Danny. You should be worried. Magic is... well, we both know what it can do, but Marley wants you to be so afraid of it that you're frightened of your own shadow, and then he'll feed on that fear and helplessness, and on all the lives that you could have saved but didn't. The cat didn't have time to say anything else, because I scooped him up and held him tightly in my arms. Through my tears, I said, It's good to see you, jerkface. Parting thoughts. I will not recount all that passed between Binks and me, for it is private. Suffice it to say that it seems Marley desires the damnation of those whose dreams he infects, but that the presence of true and loving friends can frighten him away. As I have consistently demanded honesty from my patron, however, I am obliged to be honest in turn. As Binks reassured me, he turned quite serious and said, "I meant it when I said you should be worried, Danny. You're a smart girl, a smart woman now, and by this point you've been studying the domains for years." He placed a paw on my hand. "You know who he is." And he was right. I do know who you are, Yensid, and I have for some time now, although I did not want to admit it to myself due to your villainous reputation. The shadowy iron crown that appears over my head when I assume my form of dread, the hints about your own past and present that you have revealed in our correspondence, the extraordinary magical and political powers that could only be claimed by Azel and Rex. As difficult as it was to accept this, I do not feel that this changes anything. I have no desire to end this relationship at present, nor even to call you by any name other than that which you first shared with me. Nonetheless, as strongly as you cherish your privacy, I believe that you should know. I was once again rebuffed by the closed borders of my next destination, but remembered a bit of lore for pushing my way through them. I held up the whiskey bottle that I was using as a talisman, rapped on it rhythmically, and entered the mists. Sure enough, the brilliant colors of the domain appeared around me. This domain can't resist the old shave and a haircut trick. Regards, D.
Well, my dear, it took longer than predicted for you to admit some truths to yourself. It is no wonder you have drawn such conclusions to my true person, as I would never employ a simpleton to carry out the important task that lies in your capable hands. I appreciate that you recognize the delicacy of that knowledge. Use it wisely, little scholar, for it was not only in regards to my own privacy that led me to conceal it. Magic is the power of creation in the hands of mortals, and your Binks is wise to warn you regarding its use. It is dangerous. However, dangerous does not equate to evil. My servant's bias as director to view all witches as foul creatures and agents of darkness. Yet there are many deemed witches I suspect she would admire. Maeve of the Oak from Forlorn, for one. Magic, you must understand, is a source of destruction and protection. To destroy those that would harm you and yours, and protect what is most important in these worlds. How my servant uses these forces lies in her hands, and her alone. Do not fear power, little witch. Use it and grow with it. I have little to say of this Marley spirit. Sounds like a pathetic creature weighed down by the pointless hoarding of coin, and unworthy of its influence within the Nightmare Lands. I am more interested in this non-sound, non-light that you mention. It is not the first, nor do I expect it to be the last time you refer to it. Have you reviewed your previous accounts and determined where it first appeared? This has fascinating implications. Keep me informed should it happen again.
This has been The Wonderful World of Darklords. We have no affiliation with Disney or Wizards of the Coast. All music recordings used in this episode are in the public domain and were obtained through museopen.org. Titles and links are in the show notes. Dialogue for Yensid was written by Aslan Rex himself, who you can follow on Tumblr at DarkLordAslan. The Wonderful World of Dark Lords logo was designed by Haylight Jones. You can find links to their work in the show notes. If you'd like to support the show, look for us on patreon.com or find our tip jar on Red Circle. Thanks for listening.